Welcome back everyone. We're going to be doing another comparison this time around, and we're going to be talking about none other than the OnePlus 8, who'd have guessed it, the brand new Android phone from the OnePlus manufacturer, versus last year's OnePlus phone, which also wasn't necessarily the flagship, but that one was the OnePlus 7. Now in my opinion, there is a less difference between the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro than last year with the OnePlus 7 and OnePlus 7 Pro. At that time, I think, OnePlus was definitely taking a different approach. The OnePlus 7 looked very much like the OnePlus 6T, but the OnePlus 7 Pro was a crazy phone in my opinion. The OnePlus 7 too had, brought a lot to the table, but the OnePlus 8 is a very, very good phone. There are more similarities between the 8 and the 8 Pro in my opinion, and between these two, I'll just spoil the whole video. If you have all the money in the world, getting a OnePlus 8 is probably the better choice. Even on Amazon, the OnePlus 8 is selling for $799. The OnePlus 7 is selling for about $660, and I'm sure you can get it for even cheaper than that. But even at that point, I would still probably recommend picking up a OnePlus 8 at the end of the day. Now looking on the front, I'll start off with the OnePlus 7 first. We have a 6.41-inch optic AMOLED display. It is a 1080p display, and I think overall it's a pretty good looking panel, you know what I mean? I've always said this and I still truly believe it. OnePlus makes pretty good 1080p panels, and even though the OnePlus 7's panel, isn't 1440p, it doesn't even have the 90Hz or anything, it's still a pretty good panel at the end of the day, I believe, Maybe OnePlus could have changed a couple things around with the design of the phone, but the display itself, in my opinion, looks pretty good. Now, you do have that front-facing camera with the little Infinity V display looking thing. So it's like that teardrop kind of design, and I actually do kind of like it. I don't think it's horrible, but when you look at the OnePlus 8 and you look back at the OnePlus 7, you can definitely see how somewhat outdated this design kind of looks. You have a little bit of a chin at the bottom too, and maybe that's one of the biggest disadvantages for this thing would probably be just the way this phone looks, which is crazy because that was one of the pros back in the day when we had these phones with the huge notches and all this stuff and even the huge bezels. Going to a phone like the OnePlus 7 was a huge upgrade, but now when we have phones like the OnePlus 8, it really does make the OnePlus 7 look a little bit weird at the end of the day, but I still think the OnePlus 7 looks perfectly fine for pretty much everything you're going to throw at it. Whereas on the OnePlus 8, we have a 6.55-inch Fluid AMOLED display, and this one is 1080p, and like I stated before, man, and this is a very good looking panel at the end of the day. It brought a lot to the table, it still holds a lot of value in my opinion, and it's only been out for a week or two, so yeah, obviously it still holds a lot of value. The panel itself looks really nice, and actually the first time I opened it up, I thought at first it was actually a 1440p display, which honestly, was pretty much the norm at that time because it was a pretty big phone. It's a little bit bigger than the OnePlus 8. And so I thought immediately it was, 1440p display, but that's not the case. This is actually a 1080p display, and like I stated before, OnePlus makes pretty good 1080p panels, and I think this is a pretty good panel. Now on top of that, you have that hole punch display on the top left, which is really cool. Very little bezel around the whole entire design, but you still kind of have a little bit of a chin and a little bit of the top bezel, but not that big of a deal. Otherwise, it looks really good. A humongous thing to consider though, and one of the biggest features for the OnePlus 8 is that it does have that 90Hz refresh rate, which is one of the coolest things ever. That's a humongous plus for this phone, and whether you use it or not, you have that capability. The OnePlus 7 doesn't have it, the OnePlus 7 Pro did have it, but the 8 has it too, which is really, really cool. So in terms of the front and in terms of the displays, the OnePlus 8 definitely wins here for sure without a doubt, but the OnePlus 7's display is still pretty good for a majority of things you're going to throw without it too. So on the bottom, they have USB Type-C ports, which is really cool. On the back, they have camera setups that are a little bit different. We have a dual camera setup on the OnePlus 7 and a triple camera setup on the OnePlus 8. We have glass backs on both, but the glass backs are a little bit different. So on the OnePlus 7, we have that standard glass back, which, still feels pretty good. If you have phones like the iPhone 11 or like the Galaxy S series device or even the original OnePlus 6T or 6 or whatever, all these phones for the most part have these type of glass backs that feel really smooth. And I think it feels really good at the end of the day. It feels, just as smooth as any other phone. But the OnePlus 8 has the matte texture glass back, which is something I really do like. Basically, if you've ever felt like the iPhone 11 Pro or the iPhone 11 Pro Max, is that exact same type of matte texture, which is really cool. And like I stated before, that's something I've kind of grown into. With the 11 Pro, I wasn't really feeling it, but now I actually do like it a lot, and I like it a lot more than the regular glass back that's on the iPhone 11 or the OnePlus 7. So definitely the OnePlus 8, I like that glass back more. The OnePlus 7 does not have any IP certification, where apparently the OnePlus 8 does on some models and some models it doesn't, so I really don't even know how to explain that. But in terms of the way they feel in the hand, the OnePlus 8 does feel a little bit more heavier, and it feels a little bit more premium in my opinion. The OnePlus 7 still, though, does not feel like a bad phone at all. So when it comes down to it design-wise, the OnePlus 8 definitely wins in terms of the screen and everything. But the OnePlus 7, I think, still holds up for quite a bit for even the age that it is. So in terms of the outside and the body, that really pretty much covers it. Now hitting on the software, this is a pretty easy one to explain. They're both running Oxygen OS 10 right now, which is based off Android 10, which is really, really cool. So really, all the smoothness, all the little features that come with Oxygen OS, both of them handle well. And I love Oxygen OS so much. It's one of my favorite versions of Android out there. I think it is my favorite version of Android. It's nearly stock. There's really not too much going on with it. Very little bloat, very little background processes going on. And, it just has a lot of features built into it. And like I stated before, it's probably my favorite version of Android out there. So in terms of the software, both of them are very good when it comes down to it. However, when it comes to software support, the OnePlus 7 will be lasting probably a year less than the OnePlus 8. And that's just because of the year they came out. The OnePlus 8, is a year newer and it's within that 8 series of lineup. So the 7 and 7T are going to be lasting 1 year less than the OnePlus 8 as far as we know. So again, things could change, things could happen. But based off what we know, the OnePlus 8 is definitely going to be lasting longer than the OnePlus 7. But both of these phones are still supported right now. So it's not like any of these are going to be unsupported or anything like that. So when it comes down to it, the OnePlus 8 gets a thumbs up in my books, but the OnePlus 7 is still getting supported too, so it's definitely still a great phone for now. Now that pretty much covers it up in terms of that. Now hitting on the performance side of things, I'll tell you the specs and I'll tell you, the little bit of examples of performance and all that. The OnePlus 7 has the Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 chipset, an octa-core CPU, and Adreno 640 GPU, and the base model with 6 gigs of RAM, and the top tier model with 8 gigs of RAM. In my specific case, I did have that base model version where the OnePlus 8 has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 chipset, an octa-core CPU, and Adreno 650 GPU, and there's 2 different models as well. The base model with 8 gigs of RAM and the top tier model with 12 gigs of RAM. And what I can tell you here is, it's pretty basic when it comes down to it. The OnePlus 8 is the faster phone, and that's without a doubt. It's probably a given. The OnePlus 7 though, really everything I threw at it was perfectly fine. And I always say this, but whenever I was playing heavy intensive games, it was running those good. If I was playing even lower intensive games, it was running those. If I'm multitasking, all that stuff, really everything I threw at it was perfectly fine. And that's a humongous plus for a phone like this. You want a phone to be able to handle, a lot of different apps and a lot of different things you're throwing at it. And I think that has a lot to do with the software as well. The software really doesn't have too much going on it, so it has more, power and processes to run to the apps itself, which I really do like. Whereas on the OnePlus 8, this is the top of the top right now. It has the latest chipset, has, even 8 gigs of RAM is still good enough for a phone like this. It's still great in my opinion. And like I've stated before, really beyond everything I threw at it was perfectly fine. The games ran really well. The multitasking, all that stuff, even my speed tests that I've done with this phone and a lot of my other phones, the OnePlus 8 has been beating a lot of those other phones too, and I think including the S20 in some cases. So for sure, at the end of the day, the OnePlus 8 has my thumbs up. It's definitely a great performing phone. The OnePlus 7 is still a good performing phone too, but the OnePlus 8 just does that much better at the end of the day. So when it comes down to it, the OnePlus 8 definitely wins when it comes down to the power and just the sheer performance of it. Now moving on to the cameras, like I've stated before, OnePlus 7 has 2 camera setups, a 48 megapixel wide-angle lens and then a 5 megapixel depth sensor, where the OnePlus 8 has a 48 megapixel wide-angle lens, 16 megapixel ultra-wide sensor, then a 2 megapixel macro lens. Now both phones can do 4K at 60, which is really cool, and like I've stated before, that's something that I always look forward to when a phone can do that. But I kind of think when it comes down to it, the OnePlus 8 probably is the better camera phone here. You have that triple camera setup, which is really cool. You have the higher megapixel count on that ultra wide, and you even have an ultra wide. You don't even have that sensor on the OnePlus 7, which is really cool. Now you do have that depth sensor on the OnePlus 7, which is really cool, but at the end of the day, I'd probably tell you the OnePlus 8 still has the better camera at the end of the day for sure. Now looking on the front camera, both phones have 16 megapixel sensors, and I don't know what OnePlus's fascination is with this 16 megapixel sensor. It's like all their phones have had it, which is so weird. They both can do 1080p at 30, so I think they're about the same when it comes down to it. Maybe one is a little bit better, but if anything, the OnePlus 8's total camera setup is much better than the OnePlus 7's, and the OnePlus 7's are still really good too in my opinion. Now ending it off with the battery life, the OnePlus 8 has a 4300 mAh battery, the OnePlus 7 has a 3700 mAh battery, and definitely when it comes down to it, the OnePlus 7's battery life wasn't even that bad, but the OnePlus 8's battery life is much better in my opinion. You're getting over 500 milliamp hours extra, which is crazy, and on top of that, you're getting pretty much the same resolution screen. You're getting that 90 Hz, so it's sucking up a little bit of battery life, but still the bigger battery does mean that you are going to be getting better battery life at the end of the day, which is a humongous plus. So to kind of sum up the video and say answer the question, should you pick up the OnePlus 7? Should you pick up the OnePlus 8? I'll tell you, if you have the OnePlus 7, I'll probably end up keeping it. There's no real reason to go and rush to pick up a OnePlus 8, but I think if you have a OnePlus 8, or if you don't have either of these ones, getting the OnePlus 8 is the better choice at the end of the day. But the OnePlus 7 still might be the better price per dollar right now. I've even seen a lot of OnePlus 7 Pros on eBay and Amazon go for less than $400, which is pretty impressive too. So I'll tell you, man, the OnePlus 8, tremendous device, but if you can pick up a OnePlus 7 or a OnePlus 7 Pro for less than $400 and $300 respectively, dude, those are really, really good price devices for phones like this. So that really pretty much covers it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys would check it out. More importantly than everything, I also love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.